Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's Prodeq spray demonstration. Hopefully, we'll give you a little bit of information on a new waterproofing system that we have and show you guys how impressive this new system is, this new technology, I should say. So I do want to say, establish a couple of ground rules here on the front end. So we're on a virtual live Zoom call, and we're going to be taking questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So if you have a question for us, we're going to be stopping periodically throughout the first part of our presentation here and answering those as we go forward. And then we'll have a lot of time at the end to also answer some questions as we're watching some of the live spray demonstration go on. First and foremost, I'm Armin Mickelson. I'm the architectural sales rep here in Dallas, Texas. And I've been with Henry Company for about 5 years and working in this general area. And Aiden Bradley is going to be my co-host today. I will take him off of mute in a moment. Aiden, do you want to unmute yourself? There you go.
Yep. There you go. Hey,
okay, so give us a little background on yourself, Aiden.
Okay, yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my name's Aiden Bradley. I'm the former owner, co-founder of TQ3. Originally based in the UK, as you can probably tell by my accent. TQ3 has been around for about 25 years now. And we started off in Europe, as I mentioned. We've worked pretty much all over the world with our waterproofing systems. And we gained the opportunity to do some work in New York about 20 years ago. And eventually ended up moving the business to our current plant in Fairfield, New Jersey. And we have some very interesting technologies. And today, the Prodeq system is kind of the thing that we're known for. And look forward to showing you the highlights of this product.
Awesome, thank you, Aiden. So the real reason why we wanted to ask or invited everybody on today, we've all been on probably a couple 10 or 20 virtual presentations over the last couple months, and we've been in the same kind of routine. You get a little presentation. This, we wanted to change it up. We have a nice product, a nice system here that, if you look at it on paper, looks like another waterproofing system. You have beautiful details, you can read about it, but there's a lot of advantages and benefits of this, and seeing it applied, I think, really paints a picture of what advantages and design flexibility and all the benefits you have if you choose a system like this. So I am going to switch over to a camera here in New Jersey where Paul Jasinski is going to be filming a spraying, a little bit of this on the front end. So let me switch over to our camera here. So what's going to happen here is on the back right-hand side of your screen, there's a little mock-up there. We're going to be spraying this after our PowerPoint presentation and showing you exactly how easy it is to get in and do detail work around all these different penetrations and holes. But here on the front end, we're just going to show you a couple of things as far as how easy it is to spray. We're going to spray a cinder block here. We're also going to spray a bucket. And now this is an instant setting waterproofing membrane. So in about a minute, the stuff's going to start to harden almost to the point where you can walk on it. But we're going to spray a couple things on the front end. And then after the presentation, we're going to take a sledgehammer and we're going to smash that brick. And hopefully our waterproofing membrane will still be intact. And we're also going to spray this bucket, and we'll be able to pop the membrane directly out of that bucket and fill it up with some water. So as you can see here, he's kind of detailing around the entire thing. And Aiden, you want to give us a little bit here? You've seen this go down a lot more than myself. What are we watching?
So you've got the spray guy there. He's spraying the FX400 membrane, and the material's heated to about 155 degrees Fahrenheit, and he's spraying at about 2200 psi. But literally, what you just saw him spray now is probably dry. As we'll go on to a little bit later, there's zero VOCs, there's no smell, no odor, and it is an instant setting membrane.
Wow, that's quite impressive, and it's going down so fast. I know,
Yeah,
and we're gonna dive in the presentation about the equipment and a lot of the features and benefits, but just on the front end here, we wanted to do just a quick little teaser of what we're gonna see later on. How thick is that membrane?
We typically look for a nominal 100 mils thickness, and we have various ways of gauging the thickness when you're on a traditional job site, and I'll get onto that in the presentation, how we monitor that. And what you're seeing there is all part of our total quality system, which is basically the service we provide to back up the installation of all Prodeq projects.
Outstanding. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the presentation that we're going to go over. And go over the agenda here with us real quick. So throughout this, and this will take half an hour, 45 minutes for us to go through, and then we'll see the more spraying and we'll do that demo. But we're gonna go over history and overview of the system and its uses. Then we're gonna dive into substrate preparation. This is a big key in the success of this membrane going down. Then we're gonna talk about the different system components and which ones to use in which situations. Then we'll go into our total quality service, which Aiden just mentioned a moment ago, which is it's a big differentiator when putting down any type of waterproofing system, but it's really a different look at a QA/QC process from a manufacturer standpoint. And then we're going to do a little bit of system costing just to show what it's like when you estimate or when you're going to be bidding a job like this. And then we're going to do a little bit of a comparison between our Prodeq system, our hot rubberized asphalt system, and our Puma system. So without further ado, Aiden, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, so as Armin said earlier, it's new technology to Henry and to many parts of the USA, but it is not new technology per se. Prodeq was developed by myself, my business partner, Mark Bruton, who will be fielding some questions, about 25, 26 years ago. And we partnered with a very large chemical company in the UK to develop a spray applied waterproofing system for bridge deck waterproofing. That's where it all started. And over in Europe, and specifically in the UK, they waterproof bridges very much the same way that we do Plaza decks here in the USA. They will make a bathtub out of the concrete, spray the prime spray, apply the wear coat, and then they will pave it with asphalt within a short period of time of being installed. And that's a typical bridge deck waterproofing application in the UK, and it's a significant market. So that's where we started. The first project that we did as a trial was the Blue Bridge in Amsterdam in the Netherlands in 1994. You'll see that there on the bottom left. That was a relatively small bridge, I don't know, maybe 15, 20,000 square feet. And that led to us completing our first major project, which was Schiphol International Airport, just outside of Amsterdam. And that's the picture on the right that you see. And what you're looking at there, that is actually an elevated roadway. It was approximately 300,000 square feet. Beneath that roadway is the main railway station, the concourse, retail outlets, coffee shops, etc. And that roadway was then subsequently paved with asphalt. And as you can see, that's been installed now for 22 years without any comebacks, no problems at all. and we've done several other projects there since then. Our first Plaza project in the USA was in 2000. We started production of our materials in the USA in 2012. Our technical services division, which is our total quality service, was established in 2014. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. And we don't have an accurate number, but we estimate we've probably completed probably about 15 million square feet of waterproofing projects worldwide in the previous 25 years. And then in 2017, Henry Company acquired TQ3, and that's obviously given us a much bigger platform now to take this this business nationwide. So as I said, we started off in the bridge deck waterproofing business, and below us on the screen are some examples of projects completed over the years. As you can see, from Australia to Scotland to Vancouver. But what's interesting is the picture on the top right. We did part of the Throgs Neck Bridge in New York City in the late 90s, and I happened to bump into an architect in Manhattan around that time, and he liked the idea of the concept of the waterproofing, and he had a project in Queens on Union Turnpike, and he was kind enough, gracious enough, or brave enough to give us a chance on our first Plaza deck project in New York City. The next slide, please, Armin. Okay, so this is the first Plaza deck job that was ever done in the USA with the Prodeq system. And it was basically the rooftop of a garage that was unused, and they were converting it into communal space. It was approximately 55,000 square feet. You can see in the picture on the left, there's a garage below. And the overburden choice was concrete. There's a playground on there. It's a vegetated assembly. It's a multi-use Plaza deck, 55,000 square feet, completed in the year 2000. The picture on the right is somewhat interesting. You can see the green membrane there is actually taken up the side of the building, so it can be left exposed to UV. It's not a decorative coating, but it certainly will not degrade under UV exposure, and we have many examples of that. That picture was actually taken maybe 3 or 4 years ago, so that's been exposed for best part of 15-16 years. Next one, thank you. So as I said before, we started life in the bridge deck business, and we still do bridge decks from time to time, but that's not our main focus. We identified an opportunity in certainly in the New York market and beyond for Prodeq System in lieu of hot rubber. And some examples that you see there. On the bottom left-hand corner is a school in New Jersey, carried out in about 2003, 2004. Again, a great example of the membrane that was left exposed, and it still is exposed, again, without any degradation. The center picture on the bottom is a green roof for NYU in Manhattan. Right-hand picture, typical rooftop terrace in New York City. And the picture in the center at the top is probably our largest project. Well, it is our largest project in the USA. And over the last, I would say, 10 to 12 years, we've completed close to 600,000 square feet of Prodeq waterproofing, and that is the NSA headquarters at Fort Meade for the government in Maryland. Next. So the key features and benefits of the Prodeq system, and the picture on the right is a great example of that. It's instant setting, it's self-terminating, so it's very fast and very quick to install. It gives the designer total flexibility. We have no limits on overburden choice. There's no root barrier required. There's no need for a protection course, and there's no need for flashing reinforcements. And I'll explain the reasons for that a little bit later on. And as you can see in that picture, you've got a little bit of everything there, from a semicircle to curbs, pipe penetrations, all easily dealt with the spray applied membrane. We back all of this up with our total quality service, which again, I'll come on to a little bit later. And one of the nice things is it has a proven track record. You know, we came to the USA, we started our business in New York City, and we were a relatively small business. So we never had the need to go much beyond the Northeast and primarily New York City. Again, it's UV stable and the zero vertices and low odor.
So actually, I'm going to chime in here, Aiden. I love this picture. And every time I look at this, and I know the benefits of this particular system, I know you kind of said that you're going to dive in a little bit more, but I always think about how would you flash this if this were a hot rubberized asphalt system, if you try to do it with a neoprene, or if you're using a Puma system, would you use that as far as flashing incorporated with a hot? And being able to spray this without reinforcement or go around all these different details. I mean, you've got circles, you've got 4-inch curbs, you have 6-inch curbs, you have planters, you have, I mean, it's amazing the amount of things in this one picture that are easily waterproofed.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Simon. I would imagine with some of the more traditional systems, that would be a very complicated detailing project.
All right. So throughout the presentation here, we kind of broke this into different sections. And for those of you who have specific substrate questions, the next 4 or 5 slides are going to go over those, and Aiden's going to dive in a little bit deeper. But if you have questions, shoot those out now, and I will ask those to Aiden at the end of this section.
Okay, so the acceptable substrates, I mean, 90% of what we do is concrete, of course. However, we do get applications, and you'll see some photographs further on, where we apply the material directly onto a modified cap sheet. We can apply the material to steel. We've done several significant projects where the membrane has been applied directly to steel, and that's a waterproofing / corrosion protection application. We can apply to stainless, copper, typical traffic that you would find on a roof, penetrations, etc., PVC, and we have special primers for those types of substrates. And we can apply to plywood and cement board. However, we do recommend a modified SBS cap sheet as the base on those substrates.
Aiden, did you get that?
Yep. Okay, let's see it now. Okay, so substrate preparation conditions. On the concrete, we look for a CSP 3 to 4. We can apply onto a rougher substrate. However, consumption of the primer is going to increase and probably the membrane as well. So we're looking for a 3 to 4. On new construction, and this happens an awful lot in our primary market in New York, we're okay with a light broom finish on new concrete. However, the concrete must not be power troweled, as that will draw the fines to the surface and you'll have a friable substrate. And that, if that does happen, then you would need to do some sort of mechanical surface preparation, shot blasting, grinding, etc. So a light broom finish is acceptable as long as you don't power trowel. On steel, we would look to shot blast to SSBC 10, NACE 2, or European standard SA 2.5. As in many cases, a holding primer is sometimes used. In that case, we would do an adhesion test, solvent wipe, and use our GC primer. And we've done a couple of significant projects using this method, all very successfully. And then we can use a modified bitumen cap sheet as well. That's also not a problem to spray onto. But the benefit of that is that it eliminates the need for a primer. You would not need to prime if you're applying directly onto a cap sheet. And there's some examples of this a little bit further on.
Aiden, I think it's safe to say that concrete's probably the most common substrate that most of our projects have gone over. Is there any specific things that you almost have to warn or coach the installers on when it comes to substrate prep that they might not be aware of when applying this?
So on a horizontal surface, I mean, the big thing to be mindful of is vapor drive when you're priming. So, you know, once you've prepped it, vapor drive is a big concern. And that's the same for any waterproofing system. So you have to follow the procedures for priming. When you're on a new or an old project, but on new construction, when you're spraying material onto vertical faces of concrete, the biggest issue we come across is bug holes in the concrete. So when they strike the formwork, it's very important to make sure that any bug holes greater than 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 inch are filled. And there's various methods for doing that. Either the concrete contractor can parge it, or we can use our GC primer mixed with our 51 additive that will turn it into a paste. But that is that's an item that is very often overlooked, and it's a cost. So that is something that really needs to be taken into consideration.
Thank you.
So we have two primers that we use with the Prodeq system. They're both 100% solids epoxies, high viscosity. The difference between the ST and the GC. The ST primer is our standard primer, and 90% of what we do, 80 to 90% of what we do is our ST primer. It's moisture tolerant, and by that I mean if there's a bit of dampness on the concrete, it's okay to apply. And that's very beneficial on rooftop terraces, you know, in the spring or in the fall, where you may have had some dew overnight or some rain, and there's just too many shadows and it doesn't dry out. So so that's where the ST primer really comes into its own. The GC primer is a primer for green concrete, and we can apply onto concrete after 3 or 4 days after placement. The regular primers apply at 50 degrees, and then we do have lower temperature ones that can be applied at 40 degrees. Everything else, we dictate a temperature of 40 degrees. The big thing to be careful of is the dew point. That's what you've got to be careful of. What we say is we always have a technician on the job site. So the technician will give you the go-ahead if you can apply below those temperature parameters. And you know, earlier this year in New York, we were applying our membrane at about 28 degrees, but the conditions were suitable. But we will provide the go-ahead for that. Next.
Okay, I think I took care of that question for you. But as far as the system components, same kind of thing as you guys have them. Shoot your questions to the chat, and I will get them to Aiden as we go.
Okay, so as I said before, the Prodeq system has 3 components. The primer with sand, and we always advocate the use of sand in the primer, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The primary reason being it gives you an indefinite overcoat time, and we want to use a sand that is in the 1630 mesh range, and there's a reason for that as well. But the primer with sand gives you an indefinite overcoat time. For example, if you primed today and then overnight you got rainstorm come in and you missed the window, then you're going to have to re-abrade, perhaps shot blast again, and that's a huge expense and it's a lot of disruption. We can, with the primer and sand, you have an indefinite overcoat time. We've had projects where we've primed in the fall and the weather's closed in on us, and we've come back in the spring, cleaned off the deck, and then sprayed the membrane. So the sand in the primer is very, very important, and it increases the surface area, and it helps with the adhesion of the membrane to the primer. The other thing it does as well, it helps gauge the thickness of the membrane when people are spraying the membrane. So it has a dual functionality.
That's interesting.
So as I said before, the ST primer is a high build moisture tolerant primer, typically applied at 125 to 150 square foot per gallon. The GC primer is our moisture mitigating priming system for green concrete. And the GC primer, not only is it moisture tolerant, but the thing to really be mindful of with fresh concrete is it's very highly alkaline. The pH is up around 14, and that would break down most priming systems available today. And the GC primer is applied in 2 coats. First coat at roughly 80 square foot per gallon, second coat at 150 square foot per gallon with the sand. So both primers comply with the following standards: ASTM 3010, 95 for water vapor transmission reduction over 98%. We can apply to concrete with a 100% relative humidity, and obviously it reduces moisture vapor emission rate, and that's key for the pinholing issues that you get at high elevated temperatures. Again, there you see typical application of the primer. It's pretty fast to install. You know, a typical 5-man crew, you could be looking at anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 square foot per hour. So it's very, very quick.
And is this job the ST primer that we're looking at?
Yeah, that's the ST primer. Yeah, the GC primer comes in 2 colors. We do gray for the first coat, and then the second coat is a red color, and that gives you a good indication that you're getting the correct thicknesses. There you go. That's a typical GC primer, green concrete primer application. That was a Plaza deck in New York City, where the client really didn't want to wait the 28, 30 days before covering. So he chose to install the GC primer.
One thing I wanted to ask you about on this one is we've got some rebar that are coming out. I'm assuming that's going to be a wall that will be placed on top. I see the primer going up a couple inches. When they apply the full membrane, do they need primer anywhere where that membrane is going to go?
No. That's epoxy coated rebar, so we can spray directly onto that. So the waterproofing membrane. This is the fancy part of the system, but I always say that you know, without the correct surface preparation and applying the primer in accordance with our recommendations, that's the key to the success of this whole entire system. So the waterproofing membrane. This is it's a pretty unique piece of chemistry. It's what we call it's a polyurethane copolymer. And that's a fancy word for a hybrid. And it's a blend of polyurethane and polyurea, and it gives certain unique characteristics that provide us with all the benefits that come with the membrane. The next one, please, Armin. So the waterproof membrane, as I said, it's a 2-part 100% solids polyurethane hybrid. There's no solvent, no VOC, no odor. It provides an instant seamless waterproofing capable of dealing with difficult detailing, as you can see in that picture on the right. But what really gives its outstanding properties is its high tensile strength, which is around 2000 PSI, which negates the need for reinforcing fleece. And it has high elongation, around 300%. And in the bridge deck business and other markets as well, but in the bridge deck business, the way they test this system is they will spray the membrane onto a concrete tile, and they will induce a crack underneath the concrete tile and place it in a cool chamber and take it down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. They will then cycle it 100 times, 1/8 of an inch, and that's a very, very severe test, and this system passes that particular test. In addition, it has high abrasion resistance, so it can take a lot of traffic, a lot of abuse, and has a very high Shore D hardness.
One thing I really like about this membrane is just how incredibly tough it is. And when you compare it to other types of waterproofing systems out on the market, you know, we do have some tough ones in Puma, but traditional single component cold applieds or hot rubberized asphalt, they work very well as far as protecting it from water intrusion, but they can be easily damaged. And for installers that are on here, I'm sure you know that traffic over the system is going to damage your a hot rubberized asphalt system. You're going to have damage. And you're going to need to.
That's correct. And you know, you have to remember this came from the bridge deck waterproofing business, where we would complete the waterproofing and the asphalt pavers will be following behind 1 or 2 hours afterwards. And you can have a steamroller, large dump trucks, asphalt carrying trucks driving directly on top of this without fear of damage.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a.
Could you walk us through what we're about to see in this video here?
Yeah, this is a rooftop waterproofing. I think it's in Philadelphia, and the guys there are spraying directly onto the prime substrate. You can see he's applying onto the primer with sand. You can see the other side of the rebar is bare concrete, and he sprays in 2 directions, 90 degrees to each other. And once you can't see the sand poking through the membrane, you know that you're close to your 100 mils. And there are other ways of gauging the thickness as well. But we are, as I said, we are looking for a 100 mils nominal thickness. This particular building was pretty high up. I think it's probably 16, 18 stories. And it was pretty windy there. So to prevent any overspray, then they build like a wind trap on the left. But it's very fast to install, as you can see.
Wow.
Yeah, what you see here, and we come across this an awful lot in New York City, where there was a traditional roofing system on this roof. It was an Irma configuration, and they wanted to obviously re-waterproof the deck. However, we had a fully occupied building underneath, and tear off is laborious, it's expensive, it's kind of noisy. And if you wanted to apply directly to concrete, it would be necessary to clean the concrete perfectly. There was no time to do that, and it was too costly. So the system we've introduced over the years is clean the concrete, get back to remove the old waterproofing, but you can have some asphalt residue there and torch down one of Henry's modified cap sheets, granulated cap sheets, and we can spray directly onto the cap sheet. The building remains watertight during the demolition phase, and we can apply directly onto the cap sheet, and there's no need for primer. So it's a great option if you've got those conditions.
Yeah, you know, there's been a number of projects that I've worked on or seen over the last couple of years where smell is a real concern of the owner, and choosing what type of waterproofing system based on smell was.
Yeah, and obviously, yeah, there's just no smell to the Prodeq system, or no discernible smell, put it that way. That's never been an issue for us, ever.
Got a couple videos here. We're going to start with the one on the left.
Okay, so this is pretty interesting, this one. The one on the left, that membrane is gray. Prodeq comes in gray or green. That backhoe is driving on membrane that was applied probably about 2 to 3 hours before that. Typical New York construction, nobody has the patience to wait. And they wanted to get the planters filled with the dirt. So he is driving directly on top of the membrane with causing no damage whatsoever.
That's incredible. Okay, so the center one, what are we looking at?
Yeah, and that's the same project on the previous slide, and spraying directly onto the cap sheet. The nice thing about this is the contractor was able to remove all the old roofing assembly and then torch down the cap sheet as he was going along. And then once the whole roof was waterproofed with the cap sheet, we came along and with our 2 crews and sprayed the Prodeq system directly onto the cap sheet.
Aiden, I've seen a couple of shots where we see it in green and then we see it in gray. What color options are there? I know most of the time this is going to be buried, but
It's green or gray, and just a little side note that there is a reason it's green, and that's basically going back 20 odd years ago, before the equipment became as sophisticated as it is today. We came up with the idea of having the A side blue and the B side yellow, and when it mixed, it was green. It was really a quality control measure, and it's kind of stuck with us over the years. And we got requests for a gray membrane by some clients when we came to New York, and that's really just how it's evolved. No particular reason. So you wouldn't want to use a lighter color FX400 because the color would change. So the properties wouldn't degrade, but the color would change. As I said earlier, it's not an aesthetic coating. This is a heavy-duty industrial waterproofing coating designed to be buried.
okay. And the last one here, this, in my opinion, is kind of the most impressive, although the one with the big backhoe on the left is impressive as well. But here we go.
Yeah, this is an application. So we have different types of equipment, different guns. So when you get very fine, detailed work, we have what we call palm guns. So you could waterproof all these tiny, tiny bolt heads. And this particular project, there were 6,500 of these bolt heads that needed waterproofing. And originally, the specification called for a traditional fluid applied reinforced waterproofing. Well, it was going to cost an absolute fortune. Not in material so much, but in labor to detail all of those bolts. So we proposed using the Prodeq system, and it turned out absolutely great. Saved the client a lot of money and a lot of time, more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of other methods you would waterproof around all those bolts. And, Puma, it comes to mind, but if you're using a different system, I think people would probably go to a sealant and just try and tie a regular sealant into a waterproofing system, which isn't necessarily the best way to go.
Correct. This is an interesting application. This is actually Carnegie Hall in Manhattan, and the client opted for the Prodeq system. This is above the main auditorium at Carnegie Hall, and they actually removed the entire roof and wanted to put a robust waterproofing system on the exposed deck that you see there. So they actually poured a new topping slab and opted for the Prodeq system. And when they demolished that roof, I can, because I was there, it took a hell of a beating just from debris falling, and it was robust enough to withstand that kind of abuse.
So can you tell us what we're looking at in the background? I see a couple of things here. It looks like on the back right, we have exposed, just raw concrete that's been prepared, maybe even before the primer has gone down. And I see what looks like the primer layer with sand, and then I see some stripes on there.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through what exactly we're looking at?
So it's a very old building. So when they did the demo, removed the existing flooring, they found a mix of everything there. So what they decided to do was to pour a topping slab, like a 2-inch topping slab over the whole floor. It was in the middle of summer, so a lot of cracks appeared in the topping slab. So basically what we did there, we primed the substrate, and you can see the operative there. He's pre-striped the cracks with the membrane with a nominal 40 mil stripe coat, and then applied the 100 mils of the FX400 membrane over the entire surface.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, as I'm watching all these, I'm just picturing how this would be done with other systems, and being able to go over this and not reinforce something or put a mesh or a fleece in between two layers. This looks really easily sealed right after the primer layer goes down.
And another consideration as well was the auditorium was still being used for concerts and functions. and they were very mindful of any lingering odor from other types of systems available out there. They didn't want the public to obviously to smell any other systems. So that was a big consideration. So here you see operatives spraying a terrace and spraying in a drain bowl. Now, I know from experience with a reinforced system, spraying a drain bowl, that could take you, I don't know, half an hour to an hour with cutting the fleece, etc. The operative here has completed that in 15, 20 seconds at most. So very, very quick.
That is, it's so impressive because I know drains, you really have to pay attention. If you're going to have any sort of massive water infiltration and you don't seal or waterproof around a drain correctly, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And that's quick and looks extremely easy.
So this is a project for the NYPD, and we had multiple penetrations, flashing details. We are spraying a base plate that's been prepared and primed. If you have a sub base plate like that and you've got a big gap there, we would say cork it with some polyurethane sealant, really just to save wasting material. But again, very quick, very fast to detail.
So it looks like they primed everything, broadcast sand even on the plate and up that pole.
Correct.
And then you can spray right up to that, and it looks like a piece of painter's tape at the top there to make a nice neat line.
Yes, well, what they would do, they would take the painter's tape off prior to spraying, because you can't really use tape with the spray because it cures so quickly. And if you don't get the tape off, you'll have a problem. So people tend to use templates, either a piece of plastic sheeting or some wood coated in plastic, anything to create a nice, neat, straight edge.
Okay.
But masking tape is generally not used.
There's so many, like this one little example here, the flashing that would be necessary just for a regular curb, done so quickly. It's amazing.
Again, these are just a couple of typical rooftop projects spraying directly onto modified cap sheet. In fact, the project on the right there that you see with the darker cap sheet, that's actually one of the green roofs that we saw earlier in the slides for NYU. Again, applying onto steel. And as I said before, these are, they're waterproofing projects, but they're kind of corrosion protection as well. The left is a green roof / bridge in London in the UK. We did that about three years ago in East London. And the project on the right is a project you may or may not have seen on the news. It's one of New York's latest tourist attractions, and it's called the Vessel. And that is basically, 100 pieces of steel that were assembled on site, but we actually waterproofed them at a steel fabrication yard just outside of Venice in Italy. And it was then shipped to New York and assembled there. But we have about 60,000 square foot of Prodeq waterproofing on that structure, providing corrosion and waterproofing protection.
Wow. How long did it take to pre-coat those?
We did it in several phases. I would guess we did that it was over the course of about a year, actually. We made about, I think it was 8 or 9 visits to Italy, just as they were, because you were basically working in a shipyard. So I had to go through the process of sandblasting and priming and everything. But yeah, it took us probably about 8 or 9 months.
Okay. Got a couple questions here I want to throw at you from the audience. How would you treat an expansion joint?
I would like to pass that on to Mark Bruton, if you don't mind. We have, I mean, it depends on the type of expansion joint. We have a number of details. So the way the system works at the moment is Mark tends to field those technical questions. Tell us what the expansion joint is, and we'll provide you with a tie-in detail. There's so many variations out there.
Okay.
But we haven't come across one we haven't been able to deal with.
Perfect, Mark. That one's, you can answer that Carl's question there. Then the second one here is what preparation is required for existing steel substrate? No, we touched on it earlier, but could you just review that a little bit?
So an existing steel substrate, it depends on the extent of it. You know, if it was a steel bridge deck, which we've done in the past, then you would shot blast that because you're looking for a good surface profile of 100 microns, sort of 4 to 5 mils. So shot blasting would be on a steel substrate of in a large area. But if you've got just steel penetrations or curves or pipes, then cup grinding will be sufficient.
Okay, just making sure that we can get that primer bonded on there because that's the key to having everything stick. It's once you get that primer layer down correct, the other layers are pretty easy, right?
Yeah, correct.
Awesome. I have another one here from James. When sanding for the primer, is it a sand to refusal method?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, you want sort of 90% at least, because you don't want the pure resin left exposed. Because if you miss that 48-hour window, then you could compromise the adhesion of the membrane. Okay. So it is sand to refusal.
So that's just broadcast out and swept and then can be reused anywhere else.
Yeah, as long as it's clean and dry.
Okay, thank you. All right.
One of the key issues when you're throwing the sand into the primer, if you're on a restoration project and you've got an irregular surface, which quite often happens, especially on restoration projects, you do not want to throw the sand too soon. Some people make the mistake of trying to rush it and throw the sand too soon. One, you use way too much sand. You know, you can double your consumption of sand, which is unnecessary, and you end up having to sweep too much sand off, which is labor intensive. But if you've got some holes or divots in the concrete and you try and throw the sand too quick, then the sand will sink through the film of resin and you'll end up with shiny spots. And that's what you don't want. So the installer needs to be patient when installing the sand. You know, the primer takes sort of 2 to 3 hours to take on a gel time. So there's really no rush to throw the sand on, none whatsoever.
Okay, so that 2 to 3 hours, what's the sweet spot? You want to let it set up for an hour, or is it at that 2 to 3 hour point?
No, I would say 45 minutes to an hour is good.
Okay, awesome.
You obviously, because you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself.
All right. Walk us through the wear coat.
So the wear coat, again, the wear coat is one of our original products, actually, that Mark and I came up with many, many years ago, beyond 25, 26 years, to be honest. This wear coat is a 2-component polyurethane, zero odor, zero VOCs, very tough, very durable, fast curing. You can drive on this after 2 hours. We use this in our traffic coding systems as well. So we have examples of this one product being used on a parking garage in Brooklyn, and that's been down 22 years now, so it's very tough. So we use this in conjunction with the Prodeq system. It's an option. You don't have to use it. However, if the site is going to be left exposed for an extended period of time, or if you've got some steep ramps, you've got to be careful because the membrane itself is smooth, and if it gets wet, people could slip on it, people could fall on it. So you need to be mindful of that. But what this does as well, it's an added layer of protection. And what you're seeing there in this, these are some bridges in Philadelphia that were converted to green space. The backhoe you see in the distance, it's actually driving on the full Prodeq system, primer, membrane, and wear coat with sand. So it's designed to take that kind of abuse and eliminate the need for protection. And there's no need for a root barrier either if you're on a green roof type application. So it has a multi-functions.
So this has been down for how long?
Oh, this was left exposed for probably 4 or 5 months before they came, because we did, I think it was 7 or 8 bridges along this causeway. So they waited till all the bridges were waterproofed, and then they came back and did all the green components.
Interesting. All right, now we're to my favorite little video that we'll have outside of the live one here. So why don't you walk us through this?
Yeah, so this is the same roof I showed you before. So the wear code is being installed directly on top of the FX400. In the background there, that Bobcat is actually driving on waterproofing that was completed several days earlier. So the guys are following the spray machine, and they're literally an hour behind. So we can work on top of it within roughly an hour. So it's a
they have this whole entire area in the back that we're looking at is all primed and sanded. And then as I hit play here, we're looking at a membrane that you can actually probably went down less than an hour ago.
Yeah, an hour or so before.
They're putting a wear coat right on the top.
Yeah.
Oh.
And yeah, this is the same project. And they were building, I think they're building some like blue roofs there. And the team working directly on top of the Prodeq system, again, no need for protection, building CMU walls there.
What's your typical crew size for one rig?
So for one machine, one rig, yeah, we would have a technician with a machine, and you would have a hose man and a spray guy. So 2 guys, that's all you would need, just 2 people. And typically they tend to alternate during the course of the day because it gets kind of heavy work carrying the hose all day. This is the same project again. You can see on the left there, the full Prodeq system with the wear coat. And I think this project was left exposed for close to 18 months. And they basically used the waterproofing as a staging area without any need for protection. And obviously the picture on the right is the completed project.
That's my favorite part about this, these 2 pictures is where else would they stage that stuff?
Yeah, correct.
Go down there very quickly, not having to worry that it's going to be damaged.
What we would always recommend as well, if you have had the roof left exposed for 12, 18 months, and it happens on many occasions, the electronic leak detection testing should be done just prior to covering it up. And somebody may have hammered a nail through it, and it's very easy to repair. We have small repair kits for repairing the Prodeq system, so which negates the need to actually mobilize the equipment as well. So that's also a key factor. Okay, any questions on the wear coat?
I think we did, but they were answered by Mark already.
Okay, good. Okay, so the total quality service, let me explain how that came about. When we first started installing these materials in New York City 20 years ago, we had 4 installers with equipment, and these are basically roofing contractors. So our clients, the developers, the consultants, architects, they all love the technology and what it could do, and the material will get specified. The roofers would purchase the equipment. It's a big investment. You're looking anywhere from $75,000 to $125,000, depending on kind of how fancy you want to make the setup, trailers, generators, etc. So it's a big investment. And a couple of things. One is, in the early days, we didn't have the volume of business to keep them busy week in, week out. Secondly, we were working with roofers. They're not mechanics. The equipment is very sophisticated, and it needs good housekeeping. So the end result was we would end up spending all our time on job sites, basically maintaining their equipment. So in 2013-14, we made the somewhat bold decision to take the equipment from the 4 contractors that had the equipment. We took it off them. And we got some pushback. It was kind of maybe somewhat insulting to them, telling them that they weren't capable of looking after the equipment. However, we said, listen, moving forward, you're going to rent the equipment from us with a technician, and we're going to make sure that you are being productive day in, day out. And that's how our technical service business came into being. It changed the face of our business. And in the space of literally 18 months, we increased tenfold. Why? And, I didn't foresee this, but this is what happened. The installers loved the fact that they were being productive all day, every day. The consultants liked the fact that we were present on every job, keeping an eye on the installation, observing, maintaining quality control standards. The GCs liked the fact that there was no disruption to the program. Everybody benefited from this service. And it's evolved now. We have a fleet of equipment, which if we had to replace it brand new today, would cost at least $1.5 million, maybe more. We have expertly trained operatives who have really, truly unique skill sets. These are part mechanic, they're part electrician, they understand roofing, they understand waterproofing, they understand the chemistry of the product. They really have a unique skill set that has evolved over the years. And we will train the installers how to spray. So we're not a contractor, we're a spray machine rental and technical support service. So our installers do all the spraying, we'll train, we'll observe, we'll give guidance, but the contractor is still responsible for the spraying.
When this technology was first introduced to me, I got so excited about all of the benefits of the actual membrane itself. But once I learned about this service, this is, in my opinion, the real differentiator with this particular membrane, and making sure that you're going to have 100% production, or at least very close to it. You don't have to have the overhead to purchase the equipment. It's something to wrap your head around because it's an unconventional method, but it really does make this system accessible on a lot more projects than it would otherwise.
It completes the offering, Armin. You're absolutely right. And Mark, my former business partner, and myself, we both benefit from having both been installers as well as manufacturers when we were in the UK. So we're kind of comfortable with the application side of things, but without this service, it wouldn't be the same business. And now you have a complete package with what Henry offers, the size of the company Henry is, their warranty program, the history of the product and the equipment. It really is the complete package. And I can say from experience, there's no company offering the same service in the USA. And I don't think there's anybody doing it worldwide. So it's a very unique offering. So what you see here is that this is one of our mid-size rigs. It's a plural component spray equipment. You can see we have digital readouts on the equipment there. You have an A side and a B side. The red hose is the A side. The blue hose is the B side. We monitor pressures, hose temperatures, and our guys on site, they complete the quality control daily record sheets every single day, which we're obviously happy to share with consultants and the installers alike, but we take care of our side of the quality control procedures. Yeah, as you can see here, this is and you can probably see why some of the contractors had so many headaches and problems with the machines. The picture on the bottom right there, that's what we call a mixed chamber. There are different type sizes of mixed chambers depending on the application. But that small aperture that you see on the right-hand side where the red arrow is, the material is processed through two holes, one on either side. And it comes out at about 2300 PSI. Obviously the material's heated to reduce the viscosity, but that's where everything is processed through. And all those screens and everything else, everything has to work perfectly for it to be a success. So this is where the technical service, total quality service, really does come into its own. This is a typical example of one of our QC daily reports. As I say, the operatives will take pictures of any unforeseen detailing or any problems that they might come across. We record the temperature, the time of application, substrate conditions. It really is a complete record of what went on that particular day. And this is all done digitally. There's an app on the phone, or the guys have iPads, and this is completed every single day. We have multiple different setups. We have box trucks that can take 4 rigs, trailers that can take 2 rigs. We have small mini rigs if you've got to get into a service elevator to get on a roof. And we have small mobile machines for doing 300 to 400 square feet at a time. So there's really no project that we have ever not been able to do. On the bigger projects, you can have up to 430 foot of hose per rig. If you're working on a roof, you probably don't want to go over sort of 10 to 12 stories because the weight of the hose, there's a lot of strain on the hose, so we wouldn't advocate that. But there's really no construction site that we haven't been able to handle. And as I said before, with this service, I think it completes the offering. We think everyone's interests are protected, not only Henry's, of course, but our installers, the consultants, the architects, the developers, and the GCs. So, is this yours, Armin, or mine?
You can take this, and then I'll follow up on the next.
Okay. So, TQ3 is known for Prodeq, but we realized very early on in our time in New York City that we needed to have other offerings as well. With my background in liquid technology that goes back close to 40 years now, we were able to develop, or we did develop, a range of complementary systems. So Prodeq is our PUMMA offering. Polydeck is our odor-free interior waterproofing system. Contain, very similar to Prodeq, slightly different membrane, used on reflecting pools, water containment, retention vaults, that kind of thing. We have a range of floor coatings for interior use. And then we've got our parking garage coatings that again have been around for quite some time now with a long and successful track record in Manhattan. So it really completes the offering for a typical development that you see in the image there.
Nice. It really is impressive how many different types of waterproofing you can get out of this technology by just changing it up slightly.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to dive in here, and I'm going to actually go to our website in a minute, in a couple slides, and show you at least our offering for Prodeq and the different data that we have on it, as well as the details that are currently on our website that you can see right away. And we'll look into our hot rubberized asphalt and our Prodeq system as well. There's some different options. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to our website real quick and just show our waterproofing landing page and a couple of specific areas to look for when it comes to Prodeq. And then we're going to dive in and do some spray here. Bear with me just a couple more moments. This is our typical, our US Henry website. And I just went to the waterproofing page by hitting the drop-down box and hitting systems there. And then if you scroll down, it breaks it into different types, but we're going to go to the Prodeq today. All the other pages are going to mirror this as well if you're not familiar with our website. And actually do have some of the videos. Actually, there's some alternate videos that are on here. But the one thing that I wanted to make sure that we have pointed out is all of the library of different waterproofing details that we have here. So if we wanted to take a look at a pipe penetration that's coming out of a wall and how to do that. You know, it's a nice, easy way to do it. So,
Armin, I don't see your screen if you're sharing a screen.
okay, thank you. Let me go back and share my screen really quick. Sorry for the little, well, we almost got through this whole thing without a hiccup. Thank you, Brian. All right, here's our waterproofing page. And going to the Prodeq system, which is right here. And by scrolling down, you will be able to go and see the architectural details area. We have one specific for green roofing as well. And you can see the large library of standard details that we have or that we offer. So I'll just choose any one of these and you'll be able to see exactly what our standard detail is for any one of the systems that you're trying to put on your next project. So that's kind of it. I just want to make sure you guys were familiar or saw the capabilities of our website and where you could find that information. And now the fun part. We're going to go back to New Jersey and we are going to take a peek at the guys there and we're going to first spray our little mock-up here. Paul, are you ready? With the thumbs up?
Looks ready to me.
Looks ready.
That's Jimmy, by the way.
Thank you, Jimmy. So, Aiden, why don't you walk us through here exactly what we're seeing?
So here we are. Typical. This is what we call our roof rig. We have a sort of drain detail, a couple of penetrations, and here he is spraying. You've got to be careful. You have to spray from all the different angles to make sure you don't miss a section. And he'll spray, he'll come back, he'll spray. We have a gel time of about 9 to 10 seconds, 8 to 9 seconds on this material. So when you're going vertically, you can't build the 100 mils up in a single pass because you'll get some runs. So you've got to be a little bit patient, let it gel after, and then come back and then just touch up to get the 100 mils. Normally, we would pre-stripe around these penetrations around 40 mils, and then just keep building and building and building. But you could imagine, and we've actually done exactly this roof rig with a reinforced system, one of our Puma systems, and from memory, it took him roughly about an hour and 10 minutes to do with a reinforced system. And Jimmy's done that in, I would say, what do you reckon, a minute and a half, 2 minutes? Yeah,
I'm not timing, but this is really quick. And, you know, as far as mill thickness, I know that this cures so quickly. Is this more of a, you know, knowledge thing and just from experience knowing to get the right amount down?
It's a combination, but remember we have the sand in the primer. That's a really good gauge. So
okay.
Once you can't see the sand, you've got, you know, you're probably up at around 80 mils, and then you go back and touch up. So, I mean, my saying has always been, you know, 80 mils is no less waterproof than 120 mils, but we have to dictate a certain average thickness at 100 mils.
And let's say you you sprayed an application and you went back a couple hours later and noticed that you didn't get an area covered like you wanted to. Could you just go and spray more right there? Yeah, you've got a 48-hour window in which to go back and touch up, and that does happen, of course. That does happen. Okay. As I said before, and patching is very easy. There you go. That's dry. They're actually touching that now. Oh my gosh. Completely dry. Okay.
So that is safe in rain. If that got poured down on with the shower now, it wouldn't affect it. Yeah. So, Paul, I don't know if you can hear us, but could you show us either pull that, see if we can pull the membrane out of the inside of that bucket, and or show us what you were going to do with that cinder block. You got the thumbs up there. So this is like a cooking program.
I know. Okay, and this is the bucket that was sprayed at the front end of our presentation. For those of you who hopped on a little late, we sprayed this right before we started the PowerPoint.
There you go.
Wow.
Make a nice plant pot.
I know. It's a side business.
Yeah. If that starts leaking, stop the presentation.
And this is like the reveal. Okay. Yes, let's see what you're going to do to that block. Because, you know, what we wanted to do is show you, A, how quickly this is installed. B, the fact that it is extremely watertight within a short period of time. And C, I mean, there's a lot of letters we could go into here, but how robust and tough this system is. We showed a number of videos of equipment driving on right on the membrane shortly after it was installed. So I think they're going to take a sledgehammer and hit this thing.
Yeah, we have, here we go.
Okay, so it's exposed on one side.
Pole's pretty strong as well.
Jeez. He's handing it off. I'm sorry, it's
And that was sprayed, what, an hour ago?
wow. So yeah, I really don't think you have to worry about punctures from a boot after that's installed. Okay, and that water's still holding tight. Paul, can you hear me now? You can? Okay, so if you want to show us or move those two little, the first things we sprayed and put that mock-up back down, can you show us at least, because that was just sprayed, and I want to see, I know we sprayed those an hour ago, and that's great, but I want to see if, how tough that membrane is on the mock-up in 5 minutes that we've been waiting. And I'm assuming those shoes are nice shoes and you don't want to get waterproofing on them?
Yeah, the only wear's the best.
Those are nice shoes. Oh, looks like the
Battery ran out.
just lost that. Well, actually it was just in time. So I think we got the point across of, let's see here, hold on. All right, I think we did get the point across of the main thing that we wanted to show here today about this product. And to reassure the installers watching today, as well as the design team, people that are out there, and I think we got a couple owners as well, that this isn't a new product. I know in the South we don't have too many examples of this system going down, but Aiden's been working with this, and this membrane's been applied since, when was the first job? Was it 1994?
1994, yeah.
94. So this has been around for a really long time. So if you're worried about or concerned about a system that hasn't been around and tested, we do have a long track record there. And now that this technology is a little bit more accessible based on how we're going to market with the total quality service, it's something that is going to be or is ready to go here in the South. And I have a number of projects in mind that I know that people are looking at for a Puma solution, that if you have a very detailed or difficult application, it might be a smart thing to take a look at this, or if you have an upcoming project, let us know and we'll gladly sit down and work with you. Let me check the questions. I think Mark did a really good job of taking care of most of, if not all of these. So without any other delays here, I just want to thank everybody here, Powell, Aiden, and everybody on the back end, and Mark specifically, that was working with us to set this up between Texas, Colorado, and New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and Florida, at least the different locations from the Henry employees that are on this phone call. Thank you for your participation here, and hopefully those that attended from the attendee side, you saw something that you liked. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or your local Henry representative, and they'll gladly work with you on any project that this might be applicable for.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.